Welcome to the Refurbishment Mastery podcast with me, Martin Rapley. If you're a property investor who is worried about paying too much for your next property, concerned that you don't know how to manage a refurb, or scared that you will be ripped off by a builder, then this is for you. In this podcast, I share over 30 years of experience of managing refurbishments and conversions to help you make more profit, save your time, and ultimately enjoy the process. On with the podcast. Welcome to this episode of the podcast, in which I am going to be talking about the C word. And the C word I'm going to be talking about today is Christmas. This episode should be released to you a few weeks before Christmas, and hopefully will help you manage your project over Christmas just a little bit more effectively. From my experience over the years, Christmas has become quite a disruptor to construction projects. Small ones like the ones we're doing, but even some of the larger ones are massively disrupted by Christmas. And there's a number of reasons for that. There's the obvious reasons, which I'm sure you're aware about, and I will touch on those, but there are some other reasons that you may not have fully understood or considered. So I'm going to share with you some tips from experience, and hopefully Christmas won't impact your project as much as it does some of the other ones that I've been involved with in the past. So the thing to remember with Christmas, particularly in this country now, is it seems to last for about 6 or 7 weeks. I can't believe how long the retail outlets manage to be talking about Christmas for. Sometimes Christmas almost feels as though it starts before we've had bonfire night in November, and unfortunately, with that long run in, I think that a lot of people are getting into the holiday spirit way earlier than they need to be, but significantly they're starting to slow down way earlier than just Christmas. Now, I'm not necessarily suggesting that builders are slowing down from November, but certainly running into December, that I think the whole country becomes very lethargic. And as a result, it also takes the country a while to wind back up again after Christmas. And this is why I say Christmas is more of a disruptor than just Christmas Day and Boxing Day and perhaps New Year and perhaps even an extended holiday around that time. I think as a country, we wind down very over a long period, and it therefore takes us a while to wind back up again after Christmas. So if you've got a project that is running through Christmas, let's say you've got a project that starts in November and you agree with the builder that there's 12-week work. It's not just a case of saying, well, there's 12 weeks work, I'll add on for Christmas Day, Boxing Day and New Year, so it's going to be 12 weeks and 3 days on the calendar. You could very easily find that psychologically that 12 weeks runs into 14 or even 16 weeks. And to some extent, there's not a great deal you can do about it. If you've got a project that is going to run over Christmas and the program is going to take you over Christmas, it's well worth having the conversation with your builder nice and early, and potentially even where before you instruct the builder to understand the impact of Christmas. Because as I say, it's not likely to just be Christmas Day and Boxing Day and New Year's Day. It's likely that some other days the builder won't want to be working. Some builders will work up until Christmas Eve. They'll often finish at lunchtime on Christmas Eve. Some builders will work between Christmas and New Year, but they may not commit to that on their program. So they might say, we'll use that as our own float, or I don't really know who's going to be available, so let's assume no one comes in, and it becomes a bonus if a few people do want to work. There normally are, certainly at the smaller end of the market, there normally are tradesmen that will work between Christmas and New Year, and quite close at each end. But be aware of where Christmas falls in a week. So if, for instance, Christmas Eve is a Monday, Christmas Day on a Tuesday, the likelihood is no one will work on Christmas Eve that year because they're not likely to want to do half a day of work. And if Christmas Day is on a Wednesday with Boxing Day on Thursday, the likelihood is you won't get any work done on the Friday, but you will perhaps get some builders back the following week. And you can see the same with New Year's Eve. If New Year's Day is a Thursday, you probably won't get much, if any, work done on that Friday. So just consider where it all fits in. Sometimes it's almost more convenient if Christmas Day and Boxing Day falls at a weekend, because often builders will just see the weekend as Christmas. And even though there's technically a bank holiday on the Monday and the Tuesday, a lot of builders will actually work on that week and treat it as a normal week. So the best time for less loss of continuity is going to be over, when Christmas falls on a weekend. But of course, remember that the merchants aren't going to be working on the bank holidays. The merchants will generally work and open between Christmas and New Year. Your builders will liaise with them and know when they're open, but they will generally be open in those periods. And of course, the DIY shops will be open. So if you need things on the rush, and this is less likely with builders, but if you do need materials in a rush, it's probably only Christmas Day that the DIY shops aren't going to be open. So you probably can get hold of other materials. But when you're agreeing the dates or a completion date for a project that runs over Christmas, have that conversation early with builders, agree with them when they're likely to be working. Don't push them to work other times, because whilst some of them may be working, they're not going to be up to full strength over that whole period. So agree what the effect of that is, and therefore what that does to the completion date. And rather than talk about, say, a 12-week project that starts in November, talk about a project that, allowing for Christmas, is going to finish on this date in January or February, or wherever that works out. Um, Now, builders will forget that they will be slowing down running to Christmas, and that they'll also forget that it sometimes takes time to ramp up after the break. So yeah, have a little bit of flexibility. Don't tell them that you're allowing that flexibility, but do have some flexibility built in. The other thing to be aware of is, if you've got certainly Eastern Europeans carrying out the work on your project, what you'll often find is that the Eastern Europeans are quite happy to work all over our Christmas. And I have had Eastern Europeans actually working on Christmas Day on projects, because they will celebrate Christmas, but they won't necessarily want to celebrate Christmas, because what a lot of them will do is actually go home for a week in January somewhere, because the flights are going to be that much cheaper, and they'll have a late Christmas in January, or a Christmas holiday in January. So if foreign labour are saying that they're quite happy to work all over Christmas, always have the conversation with them to see if they are likely to have a holiday in January. I've actually had, as I say, projects that have worked through Christmas, but we've actually had to close it for a week in January because they've all gone away. So all we've done is move the problem to a certain extent. So, as with everything, this is all about talking things through with your builders, being clear what they're doing, and having some knowledge and some awareness of as to what the impact is going to be on your particular project. One other something else to consider here is payments for your builders. Look and see how your payment cycle falls into that Christmas shutdown or the Christmas period. Builders will psychologically want money in the bank before Christmas Eve, so be prepared to be flexible, to work with them to help them out where necessary. If you're working on bigger projects where the valuation falls into the Christmas week, you want to be agreeing that that's going to happen as soon as they restart after Christmas. But so generally, consider payments and cash flow for your builders as one of the other things to have a conversation with your builder about, just to be sure that they've got what they need and that they can pay their bills. Remember that some builders will have the end of their VAT quarter tripping up in coming along straight after Christmas, and whilst they should in theory be allocating funds for VAT, not all of them are the best at that, and they could well be needing to pay around about the 5th or 6th of January, which could be in some cases before they've actually got going again after the New Year break, and could be before you're paying them. So just have the conversation about payment. What is the impact of Christmas on payments? You don't need to be paying them in advance, but it is about paying them promptly and helping them get through that period, particularly if you're going away yourself and perhaps not available for 2 weeks. And you don't want to be the cause, the impact. Sadly, Christmas, because the personal tax is due around in January as well. Christmas and January is the time where a lot more builders will sadly go into bankruptcy, or be forced into bankruptcy or a liquidation from a company perspective. And it is frequently HMRC that causes that becomes the straw that breaks the camel's back. So manage payments, but do be very careful that you don't overpay, because I've certainly seen builders that haven't come back in January, and I certainly worked with one a number of years ago now, where we could see they were in all sorts of difficulty, and it was obvious that HMRC were going to take them in January, and they absolutely did. Just jumping in to make sure that you've got everything you need. Now, in a number of these podcasts, you'll have heard me talk about other property investors that I'm currently working with or have worked with in the past. And so I wanted to ensure that you can find out how you can actually work with me. And the best place to start with that is my website, www.refurbishmentmastery.com. On there, you'll find details of training courses that I run. You'll find details about my community, and also how you can work with me on a one-to-one basis when you are progressed far enough down the line. And then if you're not really sure what's right for you and how we can work together, then there's a button at the top. Just hit the button at the top that says book a call. It's absolutely free. It will take you to my diary, find a slot, and we'll be able to talk in the next couple of weeks. Remember, the website is refurbishmentmastery.com. I really look forward to helping you with a successful delivery of all of your projects. Now back to the podcast. Now, talking about January, be aware that a lot of the merchants put their prices up in January. So the builders merchants will be reviewing prices and generally increasing them in January. That's not the only time in the year that they increase them, but they will generally do a fairly much across the board increase in January. Now, if you've got a fixed price lump sum agreed with your builders back in October, November time, then the builders will or ought to absorb those increases. And the builders will know that there's increases. And you may see that on some projects, the additional materials come in during December and are stored during December. That will be builders being aware that prices are going up in January, and they'll stockpile what they need as much as they can to finish off your project before those price rises. But if you're involved with buying materials yourself, my advice would be the same. Try and buy materials in December, and subject to having space to store them, get them onto the project in December rather than in January, where you could see a few percent um, price rise. Which, if there's odd materials, you can't do much about it, and projects that are running on well into the new year, builders will already have factored in some kind of price rise, and that shouldn't affect you at all. So perhaps only affecting things that you buy yourself, maybe things like kitchens and bathrooms. Now, there is a flip on the kitchens and bathrooms because a lot of the public don't actually look to buy kitchens and bathrooms in December because the average member of the public doesn't want a new kitchen installed that might run the risk of not being in by Christmas. A lot of the public won't be looking for new kitchens to be buying new kitchens and bathrooms in December. Um, and as a result, if you've got space to store your kitchens and bathrooms on site, you can get some good deals uh, because the merchants' sales drop off in December. And whilst they will definitely ramp up in January and the public will expect January sales, you can often get better deals in December than the January sale in January. But so if you are looking to buy a new kitchen or bathroom, then from when this podcast goes out, you should have time to do a deal and get hopefully a bit of a saving or a bit of a discount on those products. So use this window in your favor because it could be a benefit for you. Remember that if there's materials stored on site, they need to be stored suitably. You can't store things outside, obviously, at this time of year. Um, but be mindful of security. And some builders will say the building isn't secure enough for kitchens and bathrooms to be stored there. And some builders will change their sequencing of work to make sure that there isn't high risk elements on site over the Christmas and New Year period. You might see some builders put up CCTV cameras, and they may even take fairly extensive um, um, measures to secure the property over the shutdown period. The risk is things like copper pipes, cables, and equipment, things like boilers and things like that. They'll be super cautious about that. If your builder is managing your project for you, then that's all at their risk. But if you're more involved with it, if you're buying some of the materials, then some of it is at your risk as well. So do talk to your builder about the security side of things, and be aware that some builders will make the building so secure that even you won't be able to get in between Christmas and New Year, which that might hinder you buying some materials or double checking some things. You should always talk to your builder if you're going into a building site because you never know what condition they've left it the night before. So always tell your builder you're going in if you need to go in, but be aware that sometimes at Christmas they may not be so happy for you going in because they may want to. They may have taken additional measures to secure the property. So, in summary, really, don't underestimate the effect of Christmas. It's not just Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and New Year's Day. It's a lot longer now, and I think it's growing longer all of the time. Um, and I've talked about people winding down to Christmas, and remember, kids are doing nativity plays. There's open evenings at schools and things like that. So you'll find some of your builders are going, finishing at 4 o'clock or earlier to go to the things that the schools do. There's parties in the evening, so some of them are out into the evening, and as a result, coming in a little bit later in the morning. There's not a great deal you can do about it. Hopefully, the builders are managing it as best they possibly can. I'm reminded of a project I got involved with. Well, it was when I was managing building projects for contractors. So a good while ago now, but we had a project in in London, in the West End in London. We were um, converting, refurbishing and converting a commercial building. There was going to be a shop downstairs, and then there was office space upstairs. We had a project that had started way back earlier on in the year, way back in June, July time, quite a significant project that on program was looking like it was going to finish in December. Um, as with a lot of projects, of large projects, there were a number of changes, there were a number of variations, there were a number of things that delayed the project, and it was getting closer and closer to Christmas. The completion date was looking closer and closer to Christmas, to get to a point where it became obvious to us we weren't going to finish it at Christmas. And I can't remember the whys and wherefores of everything, but a project that we thought was going to be finished by Christmas with a few changes, a few variations, a few problems. It was now getting into that week before Christmas. And we agreed with our client that it was not going to be finished by Christmas, even though on paper it looked like it was going to finish by Christmas. We agreed that it just wasn't going to happen. And our client was all right with that at the time. The interesting thing is, it didn't finish in the first week in January either. It was about the third week in January before it finished. Effectively, we'd lost 3 weeks worth of momentum. We in the slowdown to Christmas and trying to get it ramped up again after Christmas. A project that probably, should have finished somewhere around about the 15th, 16th, 18th of December suddenly became the 18th, the 20th of January, whatever it was. And that is just serves to show the impact of Christmas on projects. And we were managing this project. We had lots of resources. We could pull things in, but with it's not just your tradesmen, it's your merchants, it's the subcontractors, it's the other people, and there is just so much impact from Christmas. So don't overlook the impact of Christmas. There's not a great deal we can do about it. As I say, in this country, I think it's got a little bit over the top, but we can't do anything about that. And all we can do is be aware of it when we're managing our projects. So good luck getting your project run over Christmas. Have a great Christmas and New Year yourself. Hopefully you're listening to this podcast before Christmas. And there'll be episodes come out over Christmas and New Year. They're all pre-recorded anyway, and my team will get them live. So, have a great Christmas, but there's plenty of content for you to listen to during your break. I'll catch up with you soon on the next podcast.
Thanks for listening to this podcast. Please do like, share, and leave a comment where you can. If you need any guidance or advice with anything to do with your refurbishments or conversions, then don't hesitate to reach out. You can book a free call with me by clicking on the link at the top of my website, refurbishmentmastery.com. There's other ways you can contact me in the show notes as well. I look forward to speaking to you again soon.